What's up guys, in today's video I'm going to show you how to create this product here. It's like a kettle type of thing. The main reason I wanted to show you how to make this is because not only is the shape cool, it also has like a little bit of basic sub D, basic retopology, and a basic Boolean workflow to kind of create this cool shape right here. So let's go ahead and get started. If you're brand new to hard surface modeling, this tutorial might be a little bit quick. So if you're brand new or just want to get up to speed with the hard surface modeling workflow in Blender, check out our hard surface accelerator program in the description below. This is our flagship course, thousands of students. You're going to learn literally everything you need to know about this workflow in under 2 weeks. That is a guarantee because we've cut out all the fluff and we only give you the information you need. So check out that program in the top of the description below. Even if you don't want to buy it, at least go to the page below, check out what's in the program and make an educated decision that way. So let's start the video. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to create the silhouette, the basic shape before we do anything else. So I'm gonna press Shift A. I'm going to go to mesh and then I'm going to go to cylinder and I'm going to change the vertex count from 16 to 32. I think yours will be the default at 32. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this top face and we're going to scale this down. Not too much, just a little bit. And maybe for the bottom we could scale this up a bit because in the reference photo it's a bit wider. And then maybe we could bevel this area with a couple segments just to kind of mimic that reference photo there. And this is kind of the general shape, not exact, but it's basically the same thing. I might even move this up just a little bit, just so we have a little bit more space. And this is pretty much the shape we're dealing with. Now what I want to do is I want to work on that area of the kettle where it's going to kind of be, you know, where you would pour from, right? It's a weird transition from a cylinder into this weird, I don't even know how to explain it, but you can kind of see in the reference photo how it transitions from that area where you would pour into the cylinder. So I'm going to actually add in a separate circle here, 32 vertices. I'm going to scale this in. Let me move this to the top. And I'm just going to kind of match that top circle as best I can. Then I'm just going to take these two edges. I'm going to delete them like so. And then I'm going to take these two vertices and extrude these forward right near the end there. I'll press F to fill that. And then I'll select these two vertices, Control, Shift, and B. And I think we only need 2 segments here. And make sure you press the C key to enable the clamp overlap and then dissolve out this extra vertex with Control X. Now I want to bevel this area here as well. So I'm just going to do that. And then again, we're going to have these overlapping vertices. So select everything, M, merge by distance, and we're going to have a very similar silhouette compared to, you know, the reference photo. Now it doesn't look like the transition into that circle is so smooth and linear. So what I actually might do first is dissolve out these vertices here. And I might actually, let me dissolve that as well. I might actually work on, I don't know, do I want to do that? I think that might be a little bit excessive. So you know what? I'll start with this for now. I'll just start with this basic bevel for right now. We'll merge that by distance. Then if we want to make any adjustments to it later, that shouldn't be an issue at all. Right now, I just want to get this thing in place and then we can worry about the intricate stuff later. So I'm going to press F to fill that, and then I'm going to extrude this down. I'm not going to do anything with the extrusion yet. I just want to see how this looks and kind of pre-plan how I might need to set this up. So if I go into face mode and take this face, I'm going to snap this. I'm going to go up here to the snapping tool. I'm going to turn on vertex, and then you can either press G, Z, and hold Control, or you can just go up here to the snapping feature, G, Z, and it'll just snap automatically for you. It just depends, you know, how you like to work. And the reason I want to do this is because I want to union this piece to this cylinder. Now, my question is do I want to scale this up at all? I don't think I do. I think this is about the right size. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. So I'm going to shift click on the cylinder here, Control plus on the number pad, and that is with the hard ops tool. I assume you have hard ops. If you don't, you can always just go here and do the Boolean modifier manually. You select the object and you would go to union. Make sure this is set to exact, very, very important. If this is set to fast, it's not gonna work well. The reason it needs to be on exact is because we're occupying the same point on the z-axis as both objects. So if that's not set to exact, you're gonna have issues. So let's apply that Boolean. All right, and then let's just hide that cutter. And then here, there's gonna be a mess. This is just a result of the exact Boolean and dealing with polygons. So very easy fix, select everything, X, limited dissolve. All right, I know this is messy, it's fine, we're gonna fix it. And then here, I'm just gonna take these two faces, I'm going to delete those, and then I'm gonna alt click up here, scale that on the z-axis to 0. I believe it's already scaled to 0, but just in case. Now, this is just a matter of a little bit of basic retopology and transitioning everything. The first thing I want to do is get rid of this triangle right here. This is just a result of the Boolean, not a problem. We're going to get rid of that. I'm also going to, I'm considering dissolving some of these areas. I'm not sure yet. Let me merge this one down to here. And I'm going to be using the symmetry feature with Mesh Machine. So Alt-X will allow us to quickly symmetrize to the other side. Now what I need to do is I need to create a nice transition around this area. So obviously we have some n-gons and stuff here we're going to have to deal with, but let me see, maybe I can dissolve that out, and I can dissolve that out as well. And then maybe I can merge that up. We'll just symmetrize over, and then I can just add in a loop cut over here. Let me turn off that snapping feature. I'm going to double tap G. We'll join that there. Join that there. Now that's not ideal, this kind of setup. So real quick, you know what I'm going to do? I think what we're going to need here is first I'm going to dissolve out this area and this area and these two areas as well. Just to kind of give me some more space to run a bevel, I'm going to also dissolve out this portion. Reason being is because I want to come in here and simply add in a bevel. Now for some reason it's not letting me bevel here, so let me see if there's not some excess geometry. There it is. Very easy fix, M and merge by distance. That should be merged. Now I just want to come in here and do maybe like a 1 segment, even a 2 segment could be okay. I think a 1 segment here is all we need just to keep it easy. This is going to give us a nice transition into the cylinder here, which is exactly what I want. Now we can just focus a bit on retopologizing this area into quads. This should not be an issue at all. And now what I want to do is I just want to come in here, Alt Shift click every other edge just to make sure this is consistent. Maybe I started a bit too high poly to begin with, but not a problem. So now this is more or less consistent. These faces are all about the same size here. It's lower poly, the sub D is going to be cleaner, and it's going to be fine. So notice how this space here is a bit shorter than this. That's actually perfect because we have an n-gon right here. All I really need to do is just introduce a loop, which is pretty much the same size, and then join this up. I can symmetrize to the other side. And then what I can actually do, and this is a mess down here, let me just delete this real quick. I think that was from the exact Boolean. Then I can fill this in. And I still think we have some extra geometry from that Boolean. Anyways, I'm going to alt click to fill that in. And just to make sure this is a circle here on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and make sure Loop Tools is enabled. You can do that up here in Edit, Preferences, Get Extensions, and search for Loop Tools. Turn that on. And then I'm going to right click Loop Tools, and then I'm going to go to Circle. That is going to transition this into a circle. And I believe these settings need to stay on. Yes, they do. And then I just need to go in here and just kind of rotate this. So R, Z, and just kind of rotate that until it's even. Notice how it kind of spaced this out into a circle. That's exactly what I wanted. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to do the same thing. We'll just kind of rotate that. And now we have a much cleaner transition into this area. Maybe I can do it one more time. Let me see how that'll look. Yeah, I think we have a much cleaner transition by doing that. And yeah, that looks great. So I don't believe we have any n-gons or triangles here. Just to be safe, I'm going to go up here to select and then select all by trait, faces by sides. I'm going to go to equal to 4, and that's going to allow us to see, do we have any issues? Notice here we have a triangle. Shouldn't really be a huge problem. I'm going to actually add in about 3 loops here to keep it even. And then I'm just going to join these up. So press the J key here. Actually, what I could do, just so it's a bit cleaner, just introduce a loop right here. And then just bevel that twice. And then we can just go ahead and join this area up. And let me see, I don't know if, yeah, I can't do that. I don't think this triangle is going to be a huge problem. Let me just join this up and join this area up as well. Yeah, this triangle shouldn't be a problem at all. You know, if that did bother you, you could always go in here. We could, you know, slide some of this area up a bit and then just give it space. So for example, I could go up here, just double tap G a bit, double tap G a little bit, double tap G, and then that would kind of give us space to go in here and add in an extra loop. I don't think this is going to be an issue at all. As a matter of fact, if I go and start our sub D, this is going to subdivide very nicely, and even if I turn off optimal display, it actually looks pretty decent. I don't see any huge problems there. So I'm going to right click to shade that smooth, just to kind of preview this transition. And this looks like a really nice transition into the cylinder from this area. So I think that's good. Let me just quickly turn that off. If I wanted to, you know, I could always go in here and kind of move this around, but I think this is a perfect transition. I think everything was set up just fine. I don't really want to mess with this too much. And again, let's just preview this in the wireframe mode. I don't see any real problems here. This looks good. Now what we need to do is we need to start focusing on the upper area. Now what I really like about this particular design is it focuses on the 70-30 rule literally to perfection. If you've seen any of our videos before, any of our tutorials before, you would know how important the 70-30 rule is. And all the 70-30 rule says is about 30% of your object should be a bunch of detail and the other 70% should just be empty space. This isn't exactly 70-30, but that's not the point. You can see most of the detail is on the top, while the rest of this object is completely clean. This brings all the attention from the viewer onto the area of importance, which is where, you know, the handle is and the button is on the top. Everything else is insignificant, and it also makes the design look very clean. So that's just a side note there, a bit about design. I don't think people in their tutorials talk about design enough. They just teach you how to model, and they don't explain any sort of design principles there. So just a little bit of wisdom for that. And also guys, if you're a member of our accelerator course, we actually have a full section on design principles in that course. So it goes very, very deep into design principles. So, you know, definitely check that out if you don't own that course yet. I am seeing a little bit of tension here from that triangle. I just noticed it just now. That is a little bit annoying. Real quick, let me go up here and kind of space these out a bit better, just so the flow is a bit more natural. That was just kind of bothering me there. And okay, that's symmetry. I don't think this is perfectly symmetrical, but not a huge issue right now. All right, let's go ahead and focus on the top here real quick. So this is looking good so far. I'm gonna keep the sub D live in the modifier stack. And for right now, what I want to do is alt click these edges. We're going to press F to fill those. I'm going to add in a proximity loop up here. And then I'm going to inset this area here to add in another one just to kind of tighten up that area. And at this point, let me think what I want to do. I think the best approach here is to start using some Booleans for this area. As a matter of fact, instead of using the loops for right now, I could actually crease this with Shift E because we're going to be using quite a bit of shade auto smooth for this particular shape. This is a product render. This is a hard surface modeling project. This workflow is slightly different than a perfect subdivision surface workflow. So this is actually an approach I would recommend because what creases do is they perfectly harden the hard edges, meaning, you can go in here and, add bevels and stuff, and it's just going to give you that nice hard edge that you would see in hard surface objects. So unless you need perfect topology all the way around, this is fine. And if you're just doing a render, it's even better because the topology does not matter, at all in those cases. So what I actually want to do here is I want to take this face up here, Shift D to duplicate it, right click, P to separate by selection. Let's select that, and then let's just go in here. We can apply that sub D. And is it not live? I don't know what happened there. Let me go ahead and just remove these modifiers. We'll add a sub D in, and I think it's just because of the crease there. So I'll just go ahead and turn that off. That looks good. We'll go ahead and apply that sub D. And then just to get rid of this mess, we can press X and then limited dissolve, because we can just make one large n-gon here. It's totally fine for what we're about to do. Now I just want to inset this upper portion. I want to invert the selection with Control I. Excuse me, my voice is getting raspy with these tutorials. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and extrude this down, select everything, and then Shift N. That's going to recalculate the normals, because depending on the direction you extrude, if I turn this face orientation on, this way happens to be inverted, this way happens to be correct. So sometimes you just don't have time to check. So just a quick way to ensure that it's correct is to Shift N, recalculate those normals, and you'll be good to go. So let's shade auto smooth there. And in the reference design, it basically has a Boolean here in this area. As a matter of fact, I don't think we have so much space. So in edit mode, I'm going to press Alt S to scale along the normals, offset even, and let's just run a difference Boolean here. I don't know how deep this needs to be, but let's reset the origin to the geometry, scale that. Maybe to about there. I mean, it doesn't have to go that far down. I think that's fine. And then what I want to do is I just want to go in here. Let me recall that cutter with hard op. So Q and then ever scroll. And then what I want to do is I want to take this bottom face, make sure we're in face mode. Then I just want to scale that down. You're going to notice that that kind of gave us a cool result. Kind of like a nice chamfer there on the inside, which is perfect. And then let me do something like that. Now there's going to be a lot of tension in here, especially as you scale in more and start doing bevels. It's going to start overlapping. There's going to be too much tension because the geometry is pretty dense in here. So what I would actually recommend is you can add in your bevel. That bevel's fine. I'll just do like a 2 segment. But what you're also going to want to do is maybe dissolve out some of these areas here. That's just going to give you less tension. It's going to give you more space to work. So, I could go in here. And honestly, that's probably fine right there. There's also another tool. I believe it is the unfuck tool. Yes, that's the name. And it's with Mesh Machine. You can actually kind of like expand this a little bit and kind of give this some space. So for example, if I select like this area, it's, okay, that area didn't work. It's a bit of a, I don't even know how to use it perfectly, to be honest, but if I select this area, for example, it kind of gives me some extra space to move things. I'm not going to touch it because I'll probably use it incorrectly. And I don't want to show tools I'm not super familiar with, so I just wanted to kind of mention that. And for this inside area, this is looking pretty decent. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And we can worry about the shading here in a little bit. I'm not too concerned with it right now. We have a lot of smooth by angle. Good Lord. It's really annoying that it's a modifier now, but it is what it is. And then here, let me just turn those off. Let me right click to shade smooth on that one. You know what I think that is? I think that's just the cavity feature. Yeah, if we turn the cavity off, maybe just turn on a matte cap instead, it's gonna not have those weird lines. That's just what cavity does by default. You can actually adjust the cavity settings if you use cavity and just kind of slightly fade that away. Maybe we'll do like 0.25 for the valley instead of 1. It just will look a little bit easier on the eyes. And then I'm just going to, I'll worry about that shading artifact later. For right now, I just want to get that shape in. So far, so good. Looks decent. Now what I need to do is I need to create that little outline. It's almost like part of these walls are extruded out and lifted up. Now there's actually a really cool feature here if you use hard ops. If you press Q, operations, and then shift click on Smart Apply, this will effectively duplicate the mesh, apply all the modifiers for you in one go. So the reason I would do this is because if I shift click on Smart Apply, it's going to duplicate it and apply all the modifiers for me in one click, which is great. On top of that, I can actually use this as what I call junk geometry that I won't need. Literally junk geometry, because I can just go in here, I can steal the geometry I need. So for example, I want to steal this area around the wall. Now it's going to be hard to select. I could go in here and select it manually, but it looks like some of the geo here is a bit messy. So what I can actually do is I can select this area, mark a seam. I can use Mesh Machine, you select an edge, alt click the same edge, mark a seam. And then if I go into face mode and press the L key, it'll select this isolated area within those seams. It's a cool trick. If you don't know about it, now you know. Then I'm just going to invert the selection here, delete out all those faces, and this is all I have left. Now, some of this geo is crazy. I'm not going to stress too much about it, but if you want to fix that, you can actually go in here, select some of these junk vertices, as I call them, Shift G, amount of adjacent faces. It's going to select all those crappy vertices, the stray vertices we don't need. Control X to dissolve those, and now we have like a perfect clean mesh. You can actually go in here if you have like machine tools and clean that up further. So for example, I could go to like limited dissolve. I'm just going to use the machine tools cleanup feature. If you don't know how to use that, you would just get machine tools. And guys, the reason I use these tools is because they're good and they're important to use. I know a lot of people get annoyed that I use them, but it's not something I'm going to apologize for because I care about the efficiency of my workflow and getting the task done as quickly as possible. So if you want a slow tutorial and you don't value your time, I'm just not the right channel for you. I'm going to show you the tools I use, the tools you need, and I'm going to make your workflow super, super efficient if you're willing to get them. But anyways, with machine tools, you go in here, turn on the cleanup feature. Machine tools is $5, guys. If you're really, really on a budget, buy machine tools first. It's the best tool out there, besides hard ops and whatnot. So this looks pretty good. So now what I can do here, let me turn off this face orientation. Now what I can do is I can just go in, I can add a very, very small solidification to this area. And I could also add in a bevel, but we'll do that later on. It's probably going to be a bit tricky right now. And then I can just apply that solidify, and you're going to see we don't really have any tension at all, even with that solidify modifier. If I went further on that solidify, it would start pinching, but we didn't need that much of a solidification. So in this case, it looks okay. Now what I need to do is I need to come in here and add in some sort of cylinder. So I'm going to add in a cylinder. I'm going to scale this down, just kind of position this right here in the center. And then we're just going to move this up. Shade auto smooth. I'm going to run a Boolean on this object. Just like this. Just something like that's cool. And then what I want to do is I want to duplicate this and then just turn it into a separate object. This is just going to be quicker than adding in a new cylinder and trying to position it here in the center. So what you could do is you could duplicate this and then you could, turn the visibility here under viewport display over to solid. The issue is this is still going to be in the cutters collection. So when I press Shift 2 to hide the cutters, it's going to hide that as well. So then you would have to move this outside of the cutters collection. It's like 5 different clicks to do. So again, if you have hard ops, all you have to do is go to settings, shift click on shade solid. It does all that for you. It's outside of the cutters collection. It's shown as solid and it's no longer a cutter. So that's just once you know these operations and once you know how to use them, these operations just stack and stack and stack. In your workflow, all of a sudden, an hour-long project takes you 5 minutes, and I'm not even kidding. So that's why, once you use these tools and you understand these tools, you're just going to be very, very quick at your workflow. And that's why we make the courses we make, guys, because you'll have all these operations and all these tricks handled in a matter of days, and you'll never need another tutorial again because you'll have all of it handled. So again, if you're interested in any of our programs, go to the link in the description, blenderbros.com. We have a beginner's course for the accelerator. We have a hard ops and box cutter program if you're more advanced. And you're going to have all this stuff sorted in like a week or two, literally. So, another shameless plug there, but the results, again, they don't lie. So let's go in here and just add in an actual bevel to this one. Let's give it a few segments, it's fine, just to kind of create like a basic shape like that. And let me see, am I missing anything here? No, this looks pretty similar. I think in the reference photo, this was a little bit less beveled. So again, if it really bothered me, I could always go in here, dissolve out some of this stuff, but it's like a, 80-20 rule. All right, now if we look in the back of that reference photo, that's kind of where we have the handle of this kettle, right? So I'm not gonna use a Boolean here. I'm just gonna use what we have already. I'm gonna select this piece, and I'm just gonna go in. I'm gonna select both of these actually. And I believe on this one, we've already applied the sub D. On this one, we have not applied the sub D. So it's not a huge issue, but I think now's a good time. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and apply that. If you're worried, you can always go in here and run a power save, or just go to save incremental. That'll just save like a separate file. Then we can go to apply that sub D. So now we have a backup and we're safe. Then I can apply this Boolean. And then just to get rid of this junk on the flat surface, we can go to limited dissolve, set this to something low like 0.1. And that's still dissolving out areas I don't want. So instead of that, I'm going to select this face here, Shift G, and then coplanar. And that should just be flat already. Then just press F to fill that, or just go in here and interesting, that's not doing what I expected. Usually you can press F. You know what, let me go in, let me finish applying these Booleans. Maybe that's the issue. I think that's the issue. Let me just get rid of that. Give it a new shade smooth. Let's try this one more time. Let me go in, Shift G, gonna go to coplanar. Okay, interesting, that's not working as I expected. Let me go in here and just see what's going on real quick. We probably have a bunch of stray geometry, which is the original issue. So you know what, I'm gonna undo this real quick. I'm just gonna leave it as it was before, because that's probably where the issue is stemming from. I don't really need to apply any of that right now anyways. Keep in mind, since the sub D is at the top of the stack, you can't apply any of the Booleans beforehand, because effectively applying a modifier below the top one pushes it to the top and then applies it, and that's just going to cause the sub D to run on n-gons and all sorts of stuff. It's okay if you're using n-gons or crappy topology depending on your goals, but the sub D has to come first. So effectively what's happening here, let me just show you. This is our base shape. It's just this thing. This is our base shape. The first thing we're doing is we're running the sub D. Everything after, the sub D is already terminated. However, if I were to apply this Boolean first, now what's going to happen is effectively this Boolean is going to move to the top, and then the sub D is going to be running on these n-gons here, and it's just not going to work. So in a hard surface workflow, if you're not too concerned with, perfect quad topology for the object, that's fine. That's not an issue. You just need to make sure the sub D is going first before you start introducing Booleans. So hopefully that makes sense there. So you know what, for right now, let's go in and let me take this here. And then let's go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's take this one. I'm just gonna bevel that and then just delete it. This is kind of where the handle starts on that reference photo. I would like to do the same thing here, but again, in order to be able to select that geo, I'm going to have to apply that sub D. There's not really any sort of way around it. So in this case, our best bet is going to be to use a Boolean. We'll just keep it non-destructive. It's not really a problem. So I'll just go in here. I'll just turn on wireframe, and I can literally just go in. As a matter of fact, I don't even need a cube. I can just go sample from one of these areas here. So let's go maybe to this one. And what I could do is let's just duplicate this piece. Let's apply these. Then I can just bevel this. I can invert the whole selection, delete those vertices, or faces rather. And then this right here I could effectively use as a Boolean. Let me just see how this is set up. You know what? I'm just gonna stick with the cube like I had before. I was gonna like solidify it and stuff like that, but it seemed like a bit of a waste of time, to be honest. So let's just go in here, keep life simple, go, you know, old school tutorial style. So I'll just go in, gonna Boolean that. We're gonna shift click on this object, mirror. We can also Boolean from that piece. And this is effectively where the handle is going to go right back here. And before we do that, just notice how clean the object looks just because all the detail is focused here on the top, yet the rest of it is completely empty, but we still have a really cool shape kind of going into this object. That's just kind of a side note there. Let me also inset this and just quickly run a grid fill down here. Let me try that again, grid fill. It looks like we might have some duplicate verts down here. Unless I have something else selected. It's interesting, usually that would be grid filling right there without an issue. Not too sure what's up with that, but I can just go in here real quick and just, you know, just do something basic like this. Not like the world's most cleanest setup. You know, you could even go in here and like turn this into a circle if you wanted to, and you know, just kind of make the bottom area a little bit more clean. It doesn't matter that much, it's a flat surface, so you know, who cares at the end of the day, but just kind of something I wanted to mention there. Anyways, back to the top here. Now we need to create the handle. So the handle should be pretty easy. What I'm going to do is, I can't bevel that because the sub D is not applied, nor is the Boolean applied, but I can sample from this one right here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these faces, I'm going to duplicate them, P to separate by selection, I want these to be separate. And then I'm just going to take this area, can move that back. And this Boolean is just a dead Boolean. It's sampling from this one, but it's a different, there's no Boolean on this, so I can either delete it or apply it. Does not matter. And then I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to extrude this on the X. All right. And then I can just kind of extrude this down. However, this isn't going to really give us a super clean result. I think a much better option is to just go with a solidify operation. So what I mean by that is, instead of extruding those tiny faces, which is going to cause problems, I can just go in here, take this edge, just go into vertex mode, and literally just do something like this. Recalculate those normals. Shade auto smooth, right? Can kind of move that up a bit. And then I can just go in here, bevel that a bit, so it's a nice handle. And then just go in here to solidify. We'll probably go in this direction. Just like that. And if you want this to be a bit higher resolution, we could go in here and let's just go to select sharp edges right here. I need to apply the solidify modifier first. So select sharp edges, make sure they're all selected, Shift E to crease, and then just run a sub D on that and then just apply it. That's just going to quickly give us some extra geo to make it a more rounded transition. I'll just turn cavity back on. I think it looks cleaner that way. Cool, so I think this is fine. If you wanted to be like really fancy, you could duplicate this and then just run like a, you know, difference Boolean right here. It should be fine, but I think this is cool. This looks great. This looks more or less ergonomic. If you wanted to like introduce some loops here and kind of, you know, make it perhaps a bit more comfortable to carry, you could do that as well. But I mean, it's a kettle. It's not really anything that crazy. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add in the ventilation here in the top. I'm going to do that with the decals because for tiny detail like that, you want to use decals. And then for this little text here on the center, I could use a decal for that, but it looks like it's engraved into the button on the top. So it's going to look better if I do the same thing here in Blender. So let me just go to top view, Shift A, and then I'm going to go to text. I'm going to change this to the word press because that's a button. I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees. Then I'm just going to set the origin, right click, set origin to geometry. And then since the 3D cursor is at the center, if it's not, Shift S, cursor to world origin. And then I can press Shift S, selection to cursor, and just scale that down a bit. And then just kind of move that in. If you want to be spot on, you would just select this top face, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then just take this selection to cursor. And now it's like perfectly centered. So now what I want to do is I want to press Control A, visual geometry to mesh. That'll turn that into a mesh. We need to run a limited dissolve on this though. So let's do 0.1, which is barely above 0. That's fine. And then we can just extrude this down. Not worried about the topology because this is just going to be an n-gon here with the bevel. Going to run a difference Boolean. Now here, because of this text, I would not recommend running a bevel. We're just not going to have enough buffer to run the bevel. Like it's going to be overlapping everywhere. There's basically no room to add it. You have a little bit of space, but yeah, it's an issue. And also here, I need to run a smart apply on all of that. So we'll just go in here. And now when we add our materials, we can just use a bevel shader. That's going to look better. And then here, notice we have a shading artifact. That's not a problem. We can just go here to add modifier, edit, and then weighted normal. Which one is that on? Normals, weighted normal. There it is. And this is something going on with this smooth by angle. Okay, that weighted normal, it's because I don't have a bevel modifier on this. That's why. I could add a small bevel modifier. That'll clean that up. Anyways, not a huge issue. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to add in a floor. I'm going to press Shift A, mesh, and then plane. I'm going to move this down. I'm going to scale this up. Just make it large enough. And then I'm just going to go to the end panel. I'm going to use our Material Works plugin for this because it's really damn good and has everything you need for materials. I don't even use Blender materials anymore. I only use it to swap them. So what I can actually do here with Material Works is I can enable an HDRI. I can go into rendered mode. So we have an HDRI. We have 6 of them actually. These are realistic HDRIs made in a studio. So these are really good. Now for the floor, let me just apply the scale, and I'm just going to give this like a dark plastic color maybe. So maybe I could do like this one. And then for the actual material, it looks like this is like a shiny plastic more or less. And we actually have just that. We have a shiny plastic material. Now this upper portion is a completely different material. It's like a darker plastic. So maybe I could go with this one or this one. This one looks good. I could also try this one. I want something more rough. So let's go with maybe this one right here, or like a rough plastic. I think this one's the best. And then I'm just going to go to this one. I'm going to give it the same material. So the matte rough plastic. Same for this one, matte rough plastic. And this is still part of the same mesh. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get that. I'm just going to smart apply everything actually. So now what I can do is I can just go in here and I can assign these two faces, add a new material, and assign it that matte rough plastic material. There we go. And actually, as a matter of fact, I'll just expand the selection here and do the same thing. So what I could actually do is, let me see, I could go here to select and then select sharp edges. It's not getting all of them because we have a bevel. It shouldn't have applied that bevel modifier. I think I might have had like a extra bevel in there. So let me just undo that. There's a lot of modifiers in here. It shouldn't have applied that bevel. I'm going to apply this manually. I'm going to apply the sub D first, and then this Boolean, and then this Boolean as well. Honestly, I don't even need to touch that Boolean. I just need access to this inner area here, so I can just leave the rest as they are, and then just assign it that matte plastic. So we'll go here, matte rough plastic, and there we go. That's exactly what I was going for. And I can even make this a bit of a lighter color, so I can just slightly increase that until we kind of have the color that we want. And the cool thing about Material Works is if you turn on this bevel option, it's going to add a bevel shader for you by default. So we can do that, and it's just going to add a bevel, and we don't even need a bevel modifier, which is great. Same for here, I can add in a bevel, no issues. And that is looking pretty clean. It should be great for a render. Now sometimes if I want to make this look even fancier, I'll introduce like a decal or a trim sheet at the end. So all a decal or a trim sheet does is it just adds in quick detail without you having to model anything. So for example, I could actually go in here, right? Maybe I'll scale these on the Z to 0. It's going to disrupt the flow slightly, but not enough to notice. Actually, it is enough to notice. I lied. We'll just go in here, maybe to this area, and I could actually go in and just apply like a quick trim sheet and just give like a quick detail here on the bottom. If you want access to our trim sheet pack, it's on our website, blenderbros.com. And I didn't have to model in any of that detail, and look how quickly I was able to, get a cool detail. If you're doing like a product or industrial render and you plan to make like money for clients or anything like that, it makes no sense to not use decals and trims because it's free detail. You don't have to model anything. Even like video games and films use them. It's just so useful because you don't have to model in all the tiny stuff. All right, so at this point, I could add something here in the back. Like for example, I could go in and then maybe add a trim sheet over here. I don't know if it'll look good. Some of these details don't even make sense given the context, but you could always go in, or if you just want a little bit of variation, you could maybe go to one side and just add a single-sided detail. And sometimes that looks pretty cool as well. Just something subtle that you can't really see. Like I could even go to just this one strip right here and just add in literally anything. Could add in something like that. And I don't know, it just looks kind of cool to kind of break the monotony. The last thing I want to add is some of that ventilation detail. I'm just going to isolate this view. Looks like we have some extra trim detail. Sometimes the trims will get messy. If you don't apply the booleans, the trims it's not a glitch. I just don't have time to explain how it works, but we can't even see that detail there. It's covered, so it's fine. But what I do want to do here is I want to go into the top. And if you wanted to get rid of that detail, literally you would just go in, you would just apply the booleans here. And then once you apply that, you could just assign it the correct material. It's not really a problem, like I said. But anyways, let's go to the top. Let's add in some sort of ventilation detail. So like any of these maybe. I can just go in, rotate this, right? So R90, RZ90. And I'm going to end up projecting this, so it's not really a big deal if it looks weird right now. But what I could do is I could project this with Decal Machine, In this case, it didn't project very well. Let me try that. That looks better. And then I could go in and maybe just add in an array. And slightly, ever so slightly, just elevate that up so there's no Z fighting going on. And then there you could just add in some like quick basic detail. I could go in and just scale that a bit. Just quick and easy detail. I didn't really have to do anything to get it. It's free detail. And there you go. I don't know why I said ventilation. That's probably where, stuff's coming out of, but you get the idea. Cool, so I think that is a good stopping point for this tutorial. You learn a little bit about just some basic modeling, a little bit of retopology, a little bit of sub-D, and of course a lot of a Boolean workflow. So that is how you would approach this. You can kind of see the final shape, the final result. Looks really clean, and you can also see how it looks in the render with decals. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel below, and check out blenderbros.com. We have a ton of hard surface modeling training programs on there. We have stuff for beginners, we have stuff for experienced users, we have asset packs, plugins, a lot of stuff. So head to the link in the top of the description, check out blenderbros.com. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.